Welcome back here with us on Urban Debate at 9 p.m. We are going to focus on the middle class in Budget 2022. There's a bit of disappointment as the expectations were that maybe the Finance Minister will bring some changes to the ATC limit of 1,50,000 that hasn't really been touched since last 7 years. Our health expenses have gone up due to COVID. There were expectations of some tax relief, no change in standard deduction too this time. The sense is that middle class has got nothing in this budget. Let's first hear what the opposition has to say on the announcements today and why there is nothing for the middle class.
बहुत सारे जो मिडिल क्लास का हुआ वो भी मिडिल क्लास के खाते पे डालिए ना. इट्स नॉट वन पर्टिकुलर सेगमेंट. किसान में मिडिल क्लास नहीं है, एमएसएमई में मिडिल क्लास नहीं है, अफोर्डेबल होम्स में मिडिल क्लास नहीं है. उन सब का राहत दिलाया नहीं है. सीनियर सिटीजन्स में मिडिल क्लास नहीं है. आज स्टॉक मार्केट में रिटेल इन्वेस्टर के नाम पे जो जाते हैं वो मिडिल क्लास नहीं है.
ये बजट मोर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, मोर इन्वेस्टमेंट, मोर ग्रोथ और मोर जॉब्स की नई संभावनाओं से भरा हुआ है. मैं वित्त मंत्री निर्मला जी और उनकी पूरी टीम को इस पीपल फ्रेंडली और प्रोग्रेसिव बजट के लिए बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं.
This is a budget which seems to be pushing the mirage of Achhe Din even farther away. Now it's India at 100. अभी 25 साल और इंतजार करना पड़ेगा अच्छे दिन आने के लिए.
I was astonished, shocked that the finance minister was outlining a plan for the next 25 years, which she called the Amrit Kal. The government seems to believe that the present does not need any attention. This is nothing but mocking the people of India.
And joining us on the broadcast this evening is Nikhil Dey, founder, member of Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan. We also have with us Professor Aman Agarwal, Director, Professor of Finance and Dean at Indian Institute of Finance and Executive and Editor, Finance India. Thank you very much, both of you gentlemen, for joining us here on Urban Debate. We are also joined by Ravi Srivastav, consumer activist and founder, Aam Aadmi Party. Thank you very much, Mr. Srivastav, for joining us here on Urban Debate. Nikhil Dey, let me begin the discussion with you. Why is there this sense that, middle class has got nothing when the government is of the opinion that this is an inclusive budget? The kind of announcements that have come, they only reflect that, there is a continuation of policy that's happening.
It is a budget very similar in policy to last year's budget. There was in between some kind of effort at the time of in 2020-21, as soon as the pandemic came, and there was a kind of a announcement of a revival package. That revival package had some things. For instance, NREGA had an additional 40,000 crores put in, but much of it was in the form of loans, and those loans haven't really materialized. What we have found in these last 2 years of the pandemic is an enormous growth in the affluence and wealth of the corporates. And that is the group that is continuing to benefit. It has benefited, and therefore the ones who are having to pay are shouldering the burden of indirect taxes, GST, and direct taxes, and the poor, both of whom have lost jobs, both of whom do not have expenditure on their kind of infrastructure that needs expenditure. And both segments, there is a middle class, and it's very difficult to define in India exactly. Like the finance minister on your program just said, doesn't it include farmers? But actually the outlays for farmers have come down. Actually the procurement amounts have come down. Actually the numbers of people from whom procurement has been done has come down. So if you look at every segment, even the ones that she was talking about, and you look at, and I'd like to talk in some detail about programs that affect the poor who have lost jobs. I mean, there are huge numbers of job losses, and it is an economy where there's continuous talk of growth, but it's jobless growth. It is growth that is affecting unable to produce either jobs, and at the other end, those who are from the informal economy, the unorganized sector, which is massive in numbers, which is 90% of our workforce, they are the ones who are turning towards Narega. During the pandemic, there was an increase of 45% demand in Narega. Narega budgets were cut by about 35% last year. They remain frozen at 73,000 crores, whereas the expenditure in 2021 was 1,10,000 crores. So something that's affecting 10 crore people in something like Narega, something that's affecting 6 million people went out of jobs into November 21. So that's affecting millions of people. Those are the kinds of policies that we need to look towards. But all we are looking towards is one particular growth rate. And you look at where that growth is going, it's going into the very, very small, exclusive top portion of billionaires. And that's what report after report has been showing. And it's been showing two things. On one side, that group, that's why it's a kind, what they call a K growth pattern. One lot shooting up astronomically, the other lot going down, and a very, very precarious middle class worried about jobs, worried about survival, worried about all their issues. So I think that there is something that needs to be done in serious terms. And all over the world, actually, affluent, very affluent people have been saying we need to be taxed more. We do need more resources. We do need more resources generated. We do need it to be put into kinds of infrastructure that will help large numbers of people getting jobs. Not merely
so
pumping resources
you
into
believe
those
that,
who
you know,
already
probably this growth that we are seeing, that we are talking about, is only for a section of society. I believe you're referring to how income inequality is a big concern, and probably that has not been addressed by the finance minister in the budget today. Middle class was waiting for some relief, but that hasn't come. Ravi Srivastav, your opening comments on what came out of the budget today, and for middle class specifically, did you find something?
Hina, it was very disappointing, and I would say it's a kind of an anti-middle class and the poor people budget. There is absolutely nothing for the people, those who are having a lot of aspirations, salaried class, you work from home people. They are waiting for so many relaxations, relief for them. But factually, nothing came out. And Aam Aadmi has been totally neglected in the whole budget, because what Nirmala Sitharaman says that is, middle class investing in the stock market, or middle class is participating here and there. But how much percentage of those people are there? There are a handful only. And what the government is doing is only helping corporates. It's a the salt on the wound that they have cut down the corporate tax. They are making those people who have got India's 58% wealth is shared by them. From 100, they have become 142 billionaires. That gap is becoming a kind of a full-fledged जिसको बोलते हैं खाड़ी है एकदम. It's such a big gap of the those who are affluent, the billionaires, and the poor people. And the people have lost jobs. They have got nothing. I will come to one specific segment which she also mentioned. Senior citizens, their incomes have completely squeezed. The small savings rate have been brought down. Their FD rates have completely brought down. They have got nothing, no anchor for them. The poor senior citizens, insurance, the medical insurance, which is the need for the senior citizens, they have to pay even GST on the insurance premium. What kind of insensitive government is this? The 13 crore senior citizens, they are suffering just for nothing. The point, a few may having the pensions for themselves or some government pensions or something like that, but majority of these senior citizens, they have got no support system available to them. I can only congratulate.
Okay, and at a time, Professor.
Let me make one positive point. I just say only one thing, that
very quickly.
Mental health mission, I think that's the only positive thing I could see in the budget. Rest, they have screwed people left, right, and center.
Okay. We have Rishi Bagri, financial analyst and economist, Manchester Business School, also joining us on the broadcast. Good evening, Rishi. I'll come to you in just a bit. Let me take the opening comments from Professor Aman Agarwal as well. Professor Aman Agarwal, at a time when the expenses on health expenditure have gone up as well, there was a little bit of expectation, probably, something will be done. To put more money in the pockets of the middle class, the salaried class specifically. Even that didn't happen. Are you also disappointed?
No, on that front, certainly everybody had expectations. But you see, tweeting the tax rates is something the government has been not wanting to do, and it is not something which can be done. 70 years it has been done every year after year. It cannot keep continuing going on. We have moved from a 98% tax in 1947-48 to a 10, 20, 30% slab, which is the lowest in the world going forward. Certainly, the COVID has been there, and that has bitten the savings of large amount of middle class, and that could have been considered in terms of relief. But the budget, in my opinion, comes in three words, which is transparency, accountability, and sustainability, which they're trying to induce through digital platforms and frameworks. And I think that certainly would influence even the health, which you talked about just a second before, in terms of National Health Register plus the digitalization, which they're trying to do in health. For agriculture, they're trying to do that as well. They've been already registering agriculturists in terms of creating an identity, digital identity for them, so that they can directly provide the benefit to those which are needing, instead of all agriculturists and rich agriculturists who have been taking advantages of some of the schemes and waivers which have been granted by governments after governments year after year. So there is, that particular framework in terms of transparency, accountability, and ultimately the middle class, which is largely the service class, has been one of the highest taxpayers and the honest segment of the whole. I would not say that the others are dishonest, but what I mean to say is because they're service class, already large part of their salary is deducted at TDS, and their salaries then come at their homes. Given those factors, I think it's important that something which is important of transparency and accountability, which has not been touched for years after years, is being induced. I remember the quote of Rajiv Gandhi when he said 1 rupee 1989 or 90, when it's going out, only 8 or 9 paisa reaches. Today, this government with the JAM Trinity and other frameworks is trying to make whatever is being given as in terms of relief, in terms of structures, reaching the people at the end of the day. You see, they have given their structure of how much is the expenditure, how much is the revenue, and they have clearly shown that the revenue is less. But despite that, they have given 1 lakh crore to different states. They're saying that we will still do capex expenditure, we will still have a fiscal spending, and we have that buffer. She also gave the news. She did not need to give. She could have taken the relief of 1,30,000 crores collected as GST is good enough, is low, but it is good enough. But she came out with the news of saying that I am getting a better GST revenue, and which will give me a leeway in terms of fiscal spending going forward. So I think she is, and she's also tried to rope in the cooperative societies. Please understand who are running the cooperative societies. Either it is women cooperative societies or men with lower and upper middle class structures in small towns, small villages who are running cooperative societies. She's tried to give relief to them as well in terms of benefiting and synchronizing the
So you
structure.
believe that some relief has come for some section of the middle class. But Rishi Bagri, many are clearly appreciating the spike in capital expenditure for the next financial year, about 35% hike that has come. That was quite bold. But apart from that, there is a bit of disappointment among the middle class, the salaried class, the people who pay taxes on time. Barring this extension of 2 years to be able to pay your income, to file your income tax return, they didn't see much. Don't you think that is a little disappointing?
Actually, you need to understand this budget in a totality. The top 3 words in this budget speech is development, investment, and infrastructure. Now, development for whom? Obviously, all this infrastructure will be used by the metro, the national highway, the shipping, the airports, all will be used by the middle class people. So those are the people who will be using it. And then you see, if you compare the 8 years ago, the tax exemption was only 2 lakh. Today it's 5 lakhs. The restaurants bill were taxed at 25%. Now it's taxed at 5% GST. The interest on the home loan was 13% in 2011-12. Now it's 6.6%. So there's a big chunk of saving going to the going for a borrower, a middle class borrower who is buying a home, he's buying a car, he's taking an education loan, he's taking any other personal loans. So all these things are free. You see the prices have, the inflation has more or less stabilized in the range of less than 5% if you take the period of last 8 years. So the 8 years you see the inflation is less than 5 years, less than 5%. So who is going to benefit? Obviously the middle class. The purchasing power of the middle class has been restored. Else the inflation used to eat that purchasing power in a double-digit rate during in 2009 to 2014. There was a sticky double-digit food inflation, sticky inflation, which we used to call, and there was a stagflation. There was no growth, but there was a high inflation. But at least now we are growing at one of the fastest rate. In fact, India is growing at the fastest rate. Then this is the one thing. Then you see the GST, the 17 different indirect taxes had subsumed into one GST. So who is going to benefit? All those things, cosmetics, you call it white goods, which were taxed earlier at 28%, now being taxed at 18%. So who is going to benefit?
Right.
Obviously the middle class. So all these things, if you consider the RERA, I remember my friends used to buy flats in the NCR and they never used to, got the delivery. Thus, almost 10 years they used to wait, and they at the same time they used to pay the rent and they used to pay the EMI. Now the RERA is there. The RERA is there to rescue them. If any such event happen, definitely that is there. So you need to see the totality. You don't see in one event. It is not a T20 match.
Okay.
It's a it's a 5-year, what do you call, test match. You have to see in totality. This is what I can say.
Okay.
And then
Okay, Ravi Srivastava wants to respond. Then I'll go across to Nikhil Dey.
No, my friend was telling about certain prices have come down of the white goods and the other things, the prices have come down. I want to ask him that, does he know that what a common man is concerned about? He is concerned about the 250 rupees per liter the oil. He's concerned about the 50 rupees per kilo for atta. Or those things, the consumer products which he is buying for a gas cylinder. How much you were getting in 2013? Tell me. 460 rupees. Today you are paying more than 900 rupees. And where the international prices have gone up? Can you tell me, please? And then crude oil, the government made it humping profits. They make 4.5 lakh crores in one single year. And they cannot pass on those, to the people who are needy people, who are really suffering because of this high inflation and the high prices. As far as the metros are concerned, the roads are concerned, the trains are concerned, everywhere you have to pay a fare and you have to pay a toll, you have to pay a surcharge. It is not coming to anybody for a free as a welfare measure from the government. These are all, this government believes
So,
only
Rishi
in
Bakri,
giving
that's an important point that Mr. Ravi Srivastava is making, because, here the concern is that, people, because of pandemic, are facing a situation wherein either they have lost their incomes or the incomes have not really risen. On the other hand, inflation is a concern today. It is something the government must also look at. Amidst all of this, how will this focus on development going to immediately put money in the pockets of the people? How is this going to address the immediate issue of demand, which is also a concern?
No, I would like to respond to my activist friend. I would like to say one thing, that what he's saying, that the extra diesel cess and extra diesel excise, that excise used to pay for the 4 lakh crore of food subsidy. The food subsidy was 1,40,000. Today, the food subsidy is 4,40,000 crore in last year. Then you come to 50,000 additional fertilizer subsidy. Then you have a 50,000 of vaccination, the free vaccination, which 95% of the population is getting. So you need to understand, all this money comes from some or the other thing. And obviously that thing will be, whether it's a cess or whether it's that thing. So, and you see the sowing of all the oil seed has increased. The prices are cooling off. The prices of pulses are cooling off. The prices of, they have reduced the thing. Then you also have to understand one thing. When I was in Bangalore in 2012, the cost of 1 liter of petrol was 82 rupees. Today, the same petrol costs 102 rupees. So in last 10 years, the price of petrol has increased 25% in absolute term. But in CAGR term, it is less than 2%, less than 3%, which is a less than inflation rate of 5%. So you need to, and obviously my salary in 2012, what I used to get and what I'm getting today is definitely is not the same. So everything is increasing, so is increasing the price. And inflation is not the only, India is not the only country which is facing the inflation problem.
That's a concern.
Hina ji, even
that's
US
also
is
a reality.
US is facing inflation of almost 40-year high. The Britain is facing 39-year high inflation. So all the countries, this is
I agree, but the point is, wasn't there an opportunity to, in a way, help the middle class in some way? Nikhil Dey, I want you to come in on this particular point, because it's the middle class which really expected something. And how will the announcements that have been made, which are being appreciated by many in the country, will immediately help us boost demand, which is the need of the hour? I want to understand that.
So from my point of view, I think the first thing that we need to understand is, what do we mean by the middle class? I think if Mr. Rishi Bagre means that the middle class are the people who are in the stock market, who have a whole lot of, the stock market is certainly doing well. If we think that they are people who have been sitting at home with rising incomes, certainly there are certain segments that have been doing that. But there are huge number, if you look at the Indian middle class, huge number of people who were first generation learners, who just started getting somewhat, not secure jobs, but just getting jobs at a slightly higher level. They have all, there's been huge job loss. And it is acknowledged right across the board that we have growth along with the loss of jobs. These are people who are not just under threat, their entire existence is under threat. There is also, if we are talking about demand, we cannot in a country like India generate demand unless we actually make sure that those who are the new middle class don't fall back into poverty. Those who are poor don't fall into extreme poverty. And that's what's been happening over the last 5 years. That's what in the last 2 years, it has intensified deeply. And this is something that we need to make sure that does not happen. This is something that is clear from figures. And let me just give you a few examples from the people who we work with who are the poor. In the case of the pandemic, we should have had, and we kept talking about it, a public health system that would deliver to everyone equal access to health. Today, a single health incident for anyone in the middle class drives them into poverty. For everyone who is poor, completely destroys their household. And that has happened with millions of households. Today, if you look at, there are 10 crore workers on Narega. They face a situation where there was 40% increase of demand in Narega in 2020-21, and we have slashed that budget by about 30%. Now, these are people that Mr. Rishi and his entire, he doesn't seem to take them into consideration. How will that lot enter the market? How will that lot be able to survive? And that is a lot figures that are coming over and over again. They are the backbone of our economy. They are the ones who actually are the ones who are doing work, producing wealth for those who are accumulating that wealth. So we need to make sure that there is some level of the generating of resources should not come from GST and should not come from petrol and diesel tax and should not come from cess. It should come from that group that is making windfall profits, that group that is making so much money compared to the rest of the people. And if you're just going to gather money from every single individual through tax on diesel, tax on petrol, through cesses of various kinds, and even including GST, 18% GST is on many, many items that the poor also buy. So
now, in fact, there is a tax on what you earn from crypto transactions also.
Right. So that crypto transactions, and there's much ado about whatever, that's again one small segment. So what we do need to understand, and I think what we need to see, is that we are a country which is largely still poor. It may have a huge growth rate, but there are huge numbers of poor people. We are a country that in the last 2 years, 3 years have produced more poor people than anywhere else in the world. Almost half the poor. We are a country where those people are the working people of the country, and we saw them on the streets. We need to understand that they are the ones who were struggling to become middle class. They were beginning to become middle class, and this is a period that has threatened them most of all because of lack of jobs, because of a lack of income.
Right. Okay. Rishi Bagri, will you like to respond?
No, I just want to tell my activist friend, Nikhil ji, that this government has done more for the poor than any other government in the past. This government has provided homes. This government has provided toilets. This government has provided a banking coverage, electricity coverage, and everything. Those people who are not even financially included, they have been included by this government. So the financial inclusion,
but that
which
is
used
more
to be
about
the 60%,
those people who are at the bottom of the pyramid.
Yeah,
that is for the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. The focus today of this discussion is about the middle class, the salaried class in the country, which had some expectations from the finance minister and is feeling a bit disappointed, Rishi.
I just want to say that there's no need of disappointed, because this government is doing for everything, and they have to balance the thing, and they have to set their priorities. Obviously, the priorities will be for the have-nots, for the people who are bottom of the pyramid, not
the bottom of the pyramid is not benefited at all. The bottom of the pyramid
has what you think, but that's not the thing.
Of the last, those are the statistics.
Even you go and check the CMI data, it shows 6.5% of unemployment, which is the lowest in last 3 years. You please go and check the same data. But what exactly happened? Till 2 months back, everybody was shouting on the CMI data that CMI data is very good. It's a sacrosanct. But once the CMI data started showing a very positive, it turned a very positive for the government. Then people shifted to Oxfam poverty data, a name which nobody knew a few days back. So this is exactly what I'm saying. And you need to understand the government has given a financial inclusion to the bottom of the pyramid. They have given the insurance. They have given the accident insurance. They are giving them direct DVTL. They are giving them food. You go to UP, you go to other places, there were 80 crore people who are getting the food grains. Now 4 lakh crore of subsidy which the government was earning from the petrol.
But that is not the middle class in this country. People who are eligible for getting food grain is not really, the entire middle class in the country, Rishi. And that's the percentage of people we are talking about. It's a big percentage of people who have lost jobs during the pandemic, whose incomes have not really grown during the pandemic, and they were expecting some kind of relief, and that hasn't come. Professor Aman Agarwal first, and then Ravi Srivastava.
You see, I do not disagree with the point on the inflation because of oil, although the inflation is very much under control, and the real effect and the benefit is there to all the poor and rich, middle class in specific, less on the rich. Okay, so that in terms of inflation being under 5% or 5.5% is a very good indicator in terms of inflation. Certainly, the oil price relief can be given, and it must be included in the GST, as I have been pointing out at various stages, to really synchronize and structurally align things up in terms of bringing in parity as well as bringing relief to people at large. So from that perspective, yes. Secondly, there is no direct benefit. And as I said, 70 years, all the time, text inkling has been done by various governments. But the important component is you give a small relief and then you take that out by actually, either inducing heavy inflation, like it has been seen in various times in past, where the GDP growth rate would be 7, 8, 9%, but the inflation rate even touch 11, 12, 13%. So and negative. So people would not get to feel it, but then actually it is eating away their savings at a much faster rate as against to what we have seen in the last 2 years. Thirdly, in my opinion, you see, as they have pointed out, it is not that the 5-year or 25-year-old budget, 25-year budget. The budget is always for 1 year. But certainly you have to give a long-term perspective plan, because when we see a $7 billion coming in as investment in foreign direct investment, increasing from $655 billion before, and portfolio investment jumping from 35 billion to 42 billion, these people who are investing in India are wanting to make money. And when they bring in especially foreign direct investment, they're not looking at 1 year. They need something in terms of policy framework, what is going to happen in the next 2-3 years.
Right.
This budget is going to be more like a foundation laying for a house, which is going to build that what will be the policy framework. How are we going to look in, as I said, looking at transparency, digital framework, structuring.
Okay, I want to give you the last word, Ravi Srivastava. I have very little time left.
1 second more.
10 seconds.
1 second more. 68% defense make in India.
Okay, so very quickly,
an indication that we want to do it here, and we want to involve our people, our technology here to get things up, whether it is defense or otherwise.
Hina, I just wanted to say that this budget was,
Ravi Srivastava, 10 seconds only. I have very little time left.
A hype was created. This will be a booster dose, like a vaccination to the economy of the country. But it appeared to be a boot to the middle class people. And the fact is that providing insurance or providing credit or providing loans are not the development. They are all payable back, and they are not nobody does a charity for that matter. It is paid back by the people. What I am asking is that the basic things, the infrastructure, the food for the people, the jobs for the people, those are more important. They contain the inflation so that people can save a little money on their hand, and the senior citizens should be taken care of, who are in the golden years of their life, which government has not done. This is the fact. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, all of you gentlemen, for joining us here on Urban Debate this evening. We'll, of course, be focusing on budget announcements on the other side of this very short break as well. Stay with us.